There's so much transfer activity involving West Ham right now. It's kind of difficult to keep up with everything that seems to be going on. Now, what I find intriguing and actually a little bit insulting with some of the rumours that are out there is that we're supposedly about to lose some of our best performing players this season. Some journalists seem to be already making the assumption that we're already relegated and that our players are easy pickings for other clubs, or that West Ham are planning a wholesale clear out in preparation for the Championship. Well, we're not relegated yet, and I wouldn't put it past Nuno and the squad to prove everyone wrong, and we could survive the drop. Now, if we do get relegated, then I expect our good players to be linked to other clubs, but not at this time of the season when there's still quite a lot of points to play for. What is happening, however, is a small revolution by Nuno. Never did I think I'd see a January transfer window where West Ham is being so active, not only in trying to sign players, but also to get rid of an awful lot of dead wood sooner rather than later. Now, I really thought that we were going to do the bulk of our business at the end of the season, stay up or not. But I didn't really think that Nuno was going to completely revolutionise the squad. Now, with Igor Julio, Nicholas Fulkrug, Luis Guilherme, Guido Rodriguez, and Andrew Irving already gone, plus Callum Marshall and George Earthy sent out on loan again, Lucas Paqueta and James Ward-Prowse are about to join them, and maybe another one or two on top of that. So that's 9, maybe 10 players out the door in this window. That's quite amazing. But how many of these players will we really miss? I guess apart from Paqueta, all the other players have been on the fringes of the senior team and hardly played that much game time between them. But naturally, with players gone, we've got to be looking to get some replacements in because we really will be quite short in numbers. But we're not going to be bringing in 9 players or 10 players that we're losing in this window. That's evident. However, going back to some medium column reports, we're going to lose probably even more than the 9 or 10 that are already destined to leave or have already left. So with that in mind, let me briefly update you on the transfers reported that are not in the pipeline according to senior sources at West Ham. And first off, one player we're not getting rid of is Crysencio Somerville. He's not going to Spurs. He's not going to Roma or any other club for that matter. Now, I reported that on Monday and I repeat the same thing today, with senior sources at the club stating that Somerville will not be sold in this window. Now, nor will Thomas Soucek be leaving anytime in this window either. But apparently there are stories out on Tuesday that Turkish club Besiktas, I can never pronounce it, are planning to make bids not only for Soucek, but also for Alphonse Areola as well. Soucek has yet again demonstrated why every manager since David Moyes has reverted to bringing him back into the starting lineup. He may not be a Brazilian Magnifico, but he shows up every time we need him. He's able to put in a shift that receives praise and plaudits, not only from fans, but pundits alike. And then what about Areola? I think this is probably one of the more bizarre stories of this window so far. He's been superb for us this season, and after he's regaining his place back in the team. And the likelihood of him leaving in this window seems rather fanciful. When senior sources at the club were asked about both Areola and Soucek, their response was blunt. No truth in them whatsoever. But I'm not surprised that Areola will be getting an awful lot of attention given how well he's been playing since his return. Now, again on Tuesday, an Italian journalist by the name of Matteo Moretto appeared on ITK Fabrizio Romano's YouTube podcast to state that Fiorentina are looking at signing both Songutu Magassa and Carl Walker-Peters. In fact, according to this journo, talks have already been held. The report states that Magassa would be a loan deal, but not so certain on what kind of deal is likely to drag Kyle Walker-Peters away. Now, when the senior sources at the club were asked whether there was any truth in this particular story, the answer was quite terse. No, nothing more was said, just no. Now, when it comes to Walker-Peters, as it stands, he's the only backup that we have for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. When it comes to Magassa, although he hasn't had much game time recently, with Guido Rodriguez and Irving having left, and the Burnley link back for James Ward-Prowse coming back to light on Tuesday as well, Magassa and Potts are really the only real cover for Souček and Fernandes in central midfield right now. Now, at a time when you need more players in than out, it would be quite shockingly stunning if Nuno were to allow any more players leaving unless he's already got ready-made replacements in mind. But stories that are factual are as follows. We know for a fact that Adama Traore, the deal is just about done. Now, there were initial concerns over Fulham's £7 million valuation. Those came and went. And the next concern was the player himself wanted to understand whether he was going to get any decent game time if he switched to West Ham. And it seems that Nuno has found a way to convince him that he will indeed feature quite heavily in our remaining fixtures of this season. That just leaves the medical, which some reports suggest were completed or was completed on Tuesday. And he's to be announced as our fourth signing of the season, fourth signing of January, probably later on Wednesday, if not already announced by the time you watch this video. Now, Traore's fee is said to be based heavily on whether we avoid relegation or not. And it's not thought to amount to much more than about £4 or £5 million in total. That's if we stay up. Now, Igor Julio, I've already mentioned, has already returned to his home club, Brighton. And we wish him farewell. He was, for those who saw how he played when he played a couple of games, I think you'd be convinced that he wasn't really, with the greatest of respect, that good. And as mentioned earlier, James Ward-Prowse's potential move to Burnley is back on. And he was apparently at Burnley's ground on Tuesday having his medical. So it seems that despite my suggesting on Monday that perhaps the 115 grand a week he earns is too steep for Burnley, perhaps it's not much of an issue at all. But in fairness, we're waiting for details of this loan move and whether West Ham will be asked to cover any of his wages. And we're good at doing that, so it won't surprise me one bit if that's what happens. With Eagles' loan being cancelled, this suggests that we're actually closer to bringing in a central defender than ever before. We've been crying out for one throughout this whole window, but nothing has materialised as yet. But it also suggests, with the loan deal being cancelled, that we can sign 2 players in the domestic market on loan. And one of them looks to be potentially Axel Disasi of Chelsea. There are suggestions that we're actually going for both him and Atalanta's Isak Hien, also on loan. Now, if the story regarding Kyle Walker-Peters is true in any way, what's interesting and good about going for Disasi is he can also play at right back as well as centre back. Now, would Disasi be a better option than Walker-Peters as backup or even as a potential replacement for Aaron Wan-Bissaka? Wan-Bissaka, as good as he is going forward, has received a little bit of stick from fans because of being out of position for the last 2 goals that we conceded, and that's fair call. Now, we're allowed 2 domestic loan signings at any one time, but we are also allowed an indefinite number of loan signings from clubs abroad. So Disasi would be one domestic loan of the 2 that we're allowed. And if we continue to push for Hien, then he would be the first loan signing from a foreign club. And finally, who else would be the second loan signing? Well, the second loan signing domestically could be Spurs' young goalkeeper, Antonin Kinsky. That seems to now be happening. There were reports last week that there was going to be a swap deal involving Kinsky and Mads Hermansen going the other way. However, it is Kinsky's link to West Ham that has continued to be reported on, with no real sign of Hermansen looking to go to Spurs. Now, with the news that Besiktas, however you pronounce it, want Areola, many are now suggesting that Antonin Kinsky might come in to be West Ham's #1 keeper. That's a bit way off the mark, to be quite honest with you. Kinsky is a very good young keeper, no doubt about that. But it's looking likely to me that with Kinsky's arrival, it will be more backup to Areola rather than in place of him. Now, this means that it looks as if Mads Hermansen's time is up at West Ham, and it looks as if he's being lined up for a move to Italy. I think Napoli are a team that are apparently interested in him. Now, they were interested in signing him in the summer, but it was West Ham who beat all the other teams to the Danish international's signature. But 6 months on, hasn't quite worked out for Hermansen, and Napoli might now get a second chance to get him on loan. So, would we be getting an upgrade if we brought Kinsky in over Hermansen? Well, Kinsky and Hermansen are both modern keepers, but their styles are opposite ends of the risk versus control spectrum. Kinsky is a calmer, positional, shot-first keeper, while Hermansen is regarded as an aggressive, high-engagement distributor of the ball. Kinsky is more traditional in his set positions. He prefers to hold his ground rather than rushing out. He relies on timing and his body shape, and he's strong in close-range blocks when he stays big. Hermansen, he's meant to be described as a proactive keeper, meant to be quick off the line, but sometimes too quick, which can expose him. Now, it seems to me that Kinsky is a more reliable keeper. So this is probably what we need right now. We need a really safe pair of hands that's going to be a really good backup to Areola. Kinsky seems to fit that bill. That's it for now. I'm sure by the end of today, there's going to be yet even more stories to tell you about, more links to discuss, more players leaving, more players coming. Who knows? It's going to be quite an interesting last 5 days in this transfer window for West Ham, and it seems that we're going to be quite busy. Thanks for watching and listening. Do become a subscriber of the channel, and I'll see you all soon.